The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. International Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. First, head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Second, use hashtag Podcast Day to join in the conversation. Remember September 30th. Now, let's start the conversation.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine. The one and only Chael Sonnen. And you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Episode 281 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. No rest for the weary. Our guest today gets right off a plane from Rio de Janeiro, where he coached Kyle Snyder to an Olympic championship and Olympic gold medal. And we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Our guest today, Lou Rosselli, new head coach at the University of Oklahoma. But when we come back around to it, you know what? No, not even time to pack, Lou. You go down to Norman, Oklahoma. You're named the new head coach at the University of Oklahoma in a real short turnaround. I mean, let's just talk about the time frame from the time Kyle Snyder steps off that mat from the time you get the job in Norman. What was that? That was really short. I mean, what was that time frame like for you?
Well, I got home, I think, on a Tuesday evening. On Friday, I flew into Norman and talked with the AD. On Saturday, I flew back home to Columbus, Ohio, and Powell. And then on Sunday, they had called me and asked me if I'd be the coach. And so Monday, it's probably a week, a little less than a week of time before we made an agreement and that. So, but it was, it's a quick turnaround.
So with Mark Cody stepping down, August 11th, I believe the term was. I mean, you guys were already down in Rio and training. And what did the whole application process like? What was this like for you? Like, okay, did you hear something was coming down the pipe and you were ready? Or was it as soon as it happened, you're like, were you asked to apply? Or was it something like, you know what, I'm going to throw my name in for this?
Well, they called me in Rio. And so, I spoke with Jason Leonard and Joe Castiglione in Rio, and nothing was definite by no means, but we spoke there, and then when I got back, they wanted to bring me in to try to have a nice quick turnaround so that the team had people or had some structure in place, and so but the process was that they asked me if I'd be interested, and then I came in and they did an extensive research, they said, so I think they knew who they kind of wanted, and they reached out to a few people, and that's how they handled it.
You've been a finalist for a number of head jobs, and you've applied for a number of head jobs. Obviously, I'm going back to when a said coach at my alma mater retired, and you were one of the first applicants for that position. I mean, you've been finalist for positions for a long time. What made Oklahoma the right fit for your first Division I head coaching job?
Well, I think they just have a strong tradition. It's a big school. A couple things I kind of look at. I look at athletic departments, how they're run, and Oklahoma is very similar to Ohio State. So, and there's certain things that I was looking for and certain things that they had. And like I said, they've won 7 national titles so far, so the tradition is strong. So that part of it was a big draw for me.
Now, when you look back at your career, having wrestled at Edinboro, which is a Division II program that has a Division I wrestling team, and it's kind of had that storied rise from when the AD said, you know what, we're going to be a Division I wrestling program, and then Coach Baumgartner, now the athletic director, working with Tim Flynn. I mean, let's go back in time to what takes you, who grew up in New York near the Canadian border and a 2-time New York State champ, to go to a school like Edinboro to develop yourself as a wrestler. Why Edinboro, other than the weather was comparable since you're right on the lake and you can ice fish 13 months out of the year?
Well, I think the times are a lot different then. The internet wasn't around. I think people know a lot more about the institutions anymore. They know more about the people. You can Google anything and find out the answer anyway. But it was a great place. Edinboro's has strong tradition. They've done incredibly well in the last 20 years. It was a good fit for me at the time. It was a smaller school. Mike Deanna recruited me there, and just great personality, very magnetic. And then I had obviously Bruce, who was an Olympic champion at the time. So when you think about being an Olympic athlete and getting an education and a guy that was very magnetic in the recruiting process, it was a good fit. Smaller school, but I think times have changed a little bit now. People know everything about everything. They know how good somebody is. So it's a little bit different. But it was my reunion. My time with Tim Flynn as a coach there for 9 seasons was incredible. He taught me how the business side a little bit to wrestling, and I probably taught him a little bit about the wrestling side. So anytime you get that combination, it works pretty good. So
you mentioned the internet, and everybody knows everything about everybody. So if put yourself as a 2-time New York State champ right now, and knowing in Edinburgh, say coming off the season it had 2 years ago, would Edinburgh still be a possible consideration for a guy like you?
To be a student athlete there?
Yes.
I think so. I think Tim's done a great job at, making sure and developing his guys, and, certainly has the ability to he has shown over time that he can win. You get an education, especially if you want to be a teacher, great school. So it just depends what you're looking for, but certainly the wrestling side, you can't, I don't know if you can't argue with what he's done over there with limited resources, so he's done a fantastic job, and it would certainly be a place you can still go and do well.
We look at your background, your wrestling acumen. I mean, what's drawn you to be a lot of people look at you as a freestyle expert, even though you were a 2-time Division I All-American on the college mats. But what is it about freestyle wrestling and coaching freestyle wrestling that you believe makes you a good coach?
Well, I think the freestyle, I don't think I would differentiate between the two styles. People say that all the time about leaning one side or the other. It's like whether you work with Logan Stieber, who won 4 national titles, or Nate Tomasello, who's national champion as a freshman. It just so happens that, it's highlighted a little bit more. But, understanding wrestling in general, the wrestling IQ, for the sport, and then just the structure, the structure that kids need to develop, and when you put them through the structure, and even the 26-year-old man needs structure, to be an elite guy. So, I don't think I, differentiate between one or the other. It just so happens, like you said, I'm probably known more in the freestyle than collegiate wrestling.
But when you look at the success Edinburgh and Ohio State has had, Tim Flynn and Tom Ryan get a lot of that credit, but you've always been the assistant that always gets a lot of that credit too. Oh, well, Lou Rosselli, he's the guy, he's really putting the time in. Lou Rosselli. Now it's going to be your program at Oklahoma. And you've always been the guy. It's like, the word on the street about you is like, well, Lou likes doing his own thing, doesn't want the responsibility of running a program. How off is that statement to say that you didn't really want to run a program?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a fair statement for anyone. I think that, the timing was right. The place was right. It's not really always about being in control. And, I think that sometimes you just outgrow a position, and I think when I was at Ohio State, you outgrew the position, and it was a good time for me to move in another direction and take another challenge. And so, me and my family made a good decision to come to Oklahoma.
Now, you mentioned your family. Amy's been a great supporter of the sport of wrestling and very vocal when somebody wants to take your name to task on the message boards historically. But what's it mean to have that type of family unit that's been able to say, okay, we know Edinburgh. All right, now we're going to go to Columbus. All right, now we're going to Oklahoma. I mean, how important is the family dynamic to a head wrestling coach or a wrestling coach in general?
Well, I think it's the most important part. I've made decisions in the past. I always make decisions based around them. And what's best for all of us, not just me. If you only make decisions based on yourself, you can make some poor decisions sometimes. It's a family unit, and it's real important to me that we all, think the same way about it. And so I think that's probably a crucial part of why, I've stayed in some roles as long as I have.
Now, explain the balance a little bit between coaching at the Ohio State University and then the Ohio Regional Training Center, because you had to take care of the freestyle athletes, and you had developmental athletes, and you had guys that were on the team at Ohio State. They were also with the RTC. Where is that balance where I'm going to work out with Tervel, and then I'm going to go in here and drill with Logan Stieber for, trying to win his fourth national championship? I mean, how much time were those two positions taking up, and is a head coaching job at Oklahoma going to give you more time to spend with your family, or is it going to be, all right, let's get another OTC or RTC rolling down here in Oklahoma, or get the one they've got kickstarted?
Well, I think, I certainly want to get the one here kickstarted and get some people in the door to start training. I think it's crucial for the college program to get integrated with these elite freestyle guys, these world-class athletes to make them grow faster. I think, no team has really ever won the Nationals without an incredible freestyle program, and it really should be a one-stop shop so you can come win the Nationals and get a great education and have an opportunity to train for the Olympic Games. So, and I think that the time put into it, it's, I had it cycled pretty good, from when we got done with, you get done with Rio, you start back in your college program, and then, I had some guys I worked out individually with, like you said, Stieber, and some guys that I still put some time into, but you go through your college season, and then after, NCAA tournament's done on March 20th, that Monday we start our freestyle program, start training again, so it was kind of just a big cycle. It's, 365-day deal from college wrestling to, the U.S. Open to the World Team Trials to, the World Championships or the Olympic Games. And it just kind of cycles back all the way through. So, the time put into that. Now, as for being the head coach, I think that, I'll get to dictate really where I put my time and what I value. And, so I'll be able to still have control over that. There's some things that I'll have to do regardless, but I'll still have, make time for, athletes. And we're in a people, we're supposed to impact young people. And that's kind of how I view coaching wrestling. Build a relationship, impact them, teach them how to be elite, and they graduate and get done with their international career and they move on. So just like my years cycled, so is theirs.
You talk about the tradition at Oklahoma, and this is something that they've got a very vocal fan base in terms of what they expect, and they expect to be not just contending with Oklahoma State, but contending for a national championship each and every year. And the last couple of years, it hasn't been up to their liking. And when your name gets hired, there's been some alums that love the hire. Then one notable alum, Mark Schultz, he didn't seem to like the hire on social media, saying that they need a world or Olympic and NCAA champion. You don't have a world championship. You don't have an Olympic championship. You don't have an NCAA championship, but you've coached all three of those. So, do you think that kind of makes up for the fact that you don't have those individual titles as a coach?
I don't think that really has that won't determine how well the program will do. That some people are incredible athletes and don't understand how to make things run right. So I don't think that's going to be an issue, and the expectations, I have the same expectations of myself. So the fans and myself will have the same expectation to do really well and to really compete. So I think we're thinking alike.
When you look at your career, how much of the career that you had, and you placed twice, you made the Olympic team, and you didn't get the gold medal in either of those. You didn't accomplish, the ultimate goals of being wrestlers. How much does that drive you as a coach to make sure that the athletes you're coaching get to experience something that you could not achieve?
Well, I think it just gives you the experience and the wisdom to be able to understand what they're going through. It's not always going to be peaches and cream. And we had a really good run in the last 10 years in freestyle wrestling and college wrestling at Ohio State. But, I think that understanding the adversity that comes with it sometimes that's part of the game and how you handle it. So it'll be interesting as we go forward and, to see where our wrestlers are and help them grow to be better. And it won't be just about athletics, getting a degree and making sure that they do things right is going to be important to me.
We had a conversation in Rio and we were kind of joking about it, and it was about your ability to coach wrestlers of every style and stature. I mean, you've had Tervel at the Ohio RTC and Kyle Snyder. So we were joking that Lou Rosselli, the smallest guy on the staff, is the best heavyweight coach in the country. What is it about your style that you believe you can coach any type of athlete, regardless of style, and be successful at it?
Well, I just think it's one, it's built on a relationship, and two, understanding wrestling and size doesn't have anything to do with the outcome. Someone that's a heavyweight doesn't just have to coach heavyweights. Now, do they need workout partners that are big? Of course. But understanding the strategies and tactics and skill sets needed to be successful, doesn't matter what size, there's certain things that are needed to be an elite athlete. And I harp on those things that, and I put the time into those things that matter, and, build a relationship with our guys, and hopefully they grow and get better. But I don't think the size has anything to do with it.
When we talk about the regional training center model and athletes like Tervel Delagnev coming in, and the ones that come through Ohio State, then that become part of the RTC, you've got that relationship with them. You've had that bond for a number of years. How do you as a coach develop that bond and a relationship with somebody like Tervel Delagnev, who comes in from Division II, from Nebraska Kearney, and he'd been kind of training here and there trying to find spots, and then when he settles, how do you develop a relationship with a guy that, okay, he's already got some polish to him, you just need to shine it up a little bit, but it's not like Logan Stieber where you had 5 years with him before he was on the senior level. You come in fresh. I mean, when new people come into a regional training center, what is your opinion on how you build that relationship?
Well, I think first it starts with just, this is the standard in which we're going to compete at and we're going to work at. And I think everyone's a little bit different. Each individual is a little different in how they tick and how they go about business, and understanding them, and is a big part of being good at your job. So I think that it starts with the structure, though, of the expectations. This is, we're going to work at this level, and, and then I think then it's just a time intensive thing. The more time you spend with people, the more comfortable they get with you, and more comfortable you get with them. So I just think it starts with really the structure to start us off, and then obviously it's time in.
Do you think in some situations having outside presences like Tervel kind of give, your coaching ability and the other athletes a different perspective? I'm like, well, not everything's, revolving around what happens in this room. I mean, how much did Tervel add to that room to give Kyle Snyder a look on, hey, I wrestled at Ohio State. Well, I wrestled Nebraska Kearney. You got different backgrounds leading for the same goal. How much did those type of relationships help one another, the outsiders coming into the Ohio RTC and then the ones from Ohio State helping build the program?
Well, I think that most of the time, like I said, everyone thinks a little bit differently, and just be open to those, the way people operate, but certainly Tervel's influence on Kyle makes a difference, and how to live, how to do things right. And, but overall, I think we all value the same things, and learning to compete and making sure that you're stress-free, and, knowing that there's a possibility you might lose. And if you do, I'll still be here. If you win, I'll be here. If you lose, I'll be here. So I think that gives people comfort, knowing that, no matter what happens today, I'm still, we're still going to coach him. We're still going to be his friend. We're still going to do the things we normally do. We'll work on it. We'll try to get better. And, but I think the standard that was set, at our regional training center was, most of them won the U.S. Open. Most of them made world teams. So when you look to your left and right, you realize that this is, if you're competitive in this room, you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to do the things you want to do.
To do the things you want to do at Oklahoma, what has to happen? How are the cupboards there?
Well, I think that, right now it's hard to say. We're in the 8 hours a week. We're starting to work hard. We're starting to lift weights and do our runs, and either 2 hours in skill instruction a week. And so, and you have to wait. I have to wait to see them really compete first to give you an exact idea. But I think we have some talent, and I think that, they're working hard at it. And they're certain to buy into the things that, I think we need. I would say with our freestyle program, we have to, obviously generate some revenues coming in the door, and then we got to get some people that are training. Right now, we don't have anybody training, so we have to go out and get a few people, and, that costs money. So, getting people on board and why these two, programs, the freestyle program and the college program, integrate, getting a little better understanding so people know, our donors know why it matters, and they just keep changing the names, regional training center, the wrestling clubs. So this is just, it isn't totally new here. I think they haven't, in 2012, they had 2 Olympians, so it's not new. I don't have to revamp the whole thing. We just got to get it just running more functional.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a poster on my wall that I dug up from some of the gear some people had sent me over the years, and it's from 1981. It's from the Lloyd Noble Center, the Oklahoma Underdogs. So that's the old school wrestling club of what they used to call it. So it's been around. There's been some freestyle level of wrestling here in Oklahoma for a long time. But when we look at the recruiting aspect of the University of Oklahoma, at Edinboro, the Fighting Scots weren't even the first deck. You were looking at your Penn States, your Pitts, your Lehighs, and then you had your, Edinboro was in that second and third option for some people. Whereas in Ohio, at Ohio State, you're the first option for the in-state kids because they always, a lot of them want to be Buckeyes. It's always OH and then IO right after it. Now in Oklahoma, when it comes to wrestling, Oklahoma State casts a very wide shadow. And, there's state champs that go there and sit the pine for 4 years. What is it going to take for you to try to bring people from not just the state of Oklahoma, but nationally into Norman and be like, look, we were a powerhouse once before. Yeah, there's that school with Orange down the road in Stillwater. That's a pretty big powerhouse. What's the goal to bring people in, make Bedlam a thing again that's competitive? I mean, there's a lot of goals you got to have with recruiting and as it relates to Oklahoma State as well.
Yeah, I would say that even John would agree that, we got to get this thing, get the right kind of kids in here, so we can be competitive. Right now it's a little lopsided. So, we got to get the right recruits and the people that aspire to be, Olympic athletes and, get the right quality in here so that we can be highly competitive and then train them right and do the things that you need to do to be successful. So, obviously the recruiting portion is a big part of college wrestling in general, and finding the right people that really want to be elite. So, I just think it's getting the right guys. We have to get the right guys and, in-state, out-of-state, I'll recruit in-state. We'll recruit out-of-state if we have to, to fill the holes and the needs, but that's normal. I don't think that's anything new in recruiting. People try to get the best kids you can get.
What is your knowledge of the state of Oklahoma and its high school wrestling scene? Obviously, we know a lot of great tradition, but the kids that are sitting there right now, I mean, do you have to reacquaint yourself with some of them, be like, or make those inroads? Or how much do you know about Oklahoma and these kids that you're going to have to bring in your office here in the next year or two?
Well, I'm not as familiar with Oklahoma as I am with Ohio and Pennsylvania, but I'll get to know them. You got to keep reaching out to people and figuring out the state a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons that, Michael Leitner, I want to keep him on board and he knows him a little more than I do. But, I think that's part of it. It's getting more familiar with the state, obviously Pennsylvania and Ohio, and I'm from New York, that gives me a little more better understanding of those states, but I'll get familiar with it.
Now, word also circulating that you're bringing in Keith Gavin on staff. I mean, how soon can you comment on staffing issues? Obviously, Leitner, you said you're going to remain there, but is Gavin a done deal? Gavin
is definitely going to be a Sooner. So right now I have Gavin and Michael Leitner. I'm still looking for a volunteer coach. So, still a little legwork left to do, as we get rolling. But I'm trying to find the right people, the right people to put in place so that, we can be as good as we can be.
Now, this can't be your most ideal time frame, taking over a job, literally a week before school starts. And you've got athletes on the team not knowing who their coach is going to be going into their next year. I mean, what have you done to try to make the best out of a less than ideal situation of coming in, a week before school starts?
Well, as soon as they made the hire, I came in and addressed the team. This is the expectation. This is what we're looking for. I know they weren't familiar with me. So just introducing myself, making sure that they had an understanding of, this is how we're going to operate. And then obviously, doing what you say, so I think to build the trust that you need to build in the program, you got to do exactly what you say you're going to do, so right now like I said, we're in 8 hours a week. We're make sure we're having structure to the program, make sure that you're doing that and trying to build the relationships. And it's a slow process. It's not something that just happens overnight, but I think that in the end of the day, we'll have a good understanding of how I operate and how they operate. And, it'll work out well.
From what you know about Mark Cody as a coach and his previous stints at different places, how difficult do you think it's going to be, or will it be difficult at all to convince kids to stay?
Yeah, I don't know if I can really make a comment on the way, what has transpired in the past and how he operated. I don't know much about it. I just know that it's, the transition, everything is new. And, the way I'm going to handle things might be a lot different than him, but but I can't really give you a say so on what Mark, his kids and the way they operated and how he handled things. I have no comment to really make on that.
Now, the last thing I want to touch on about the current athletes again, All-American Ryan Milhoff has been rumored to have asked for a release. What's that situation? I mean, is there a convincing thing here, or is that something you can address?
I mean, he has asked for a release. They had a hearing. It was denied. He's still kind of looking. As a coach, I hope he stays. Of course, he's returning All-American, but he has to be comfortable with the situation. And if he's not real comfortable with it, and he feels like it's not going to be the best spot for him, then he'll have to make some decisions. But he's obviously, we encourage him to stay. We want him to, but I also want him to be comfortable too. I want everybody going in the same direction. So if he's uncomfortable and it's that's how it will be, then he'll have to make some tough decisions.
Circle back over to the Olympic discussion, because we really haven't talked a whole lot about Kyle Snyder. What makes this kid so good at 20 years old?
Well, I think he's just his expectations of himself, his preparation, the way he handles himself, the way he operates during practice and training sessions. I mean, anybody that watches Kyle Snyder train can even a novice can look at him in practice and go, oh, wow, he's a lot different than the other guys. So I think those things, and the way he lives, the way what he stands for, he is just someone that is hardworking, fixing his wrestling, willing to, he's a good listener, he's coachable. He has a lot of the attributes that, at that age and that young age that you want. Believes in himself, expects, not just to do okay, but to give everything he has. So he's just a unique individual.
What are the opportunities going to be now for you to coach him throughout his senior career?
Well, I mean, obviously, they'll do a great job with him. The Ohio Regional Training Center will still do great things. I mean, he's a world and Olympic champion. He's 20 years old. He's going to wrestle for 10 or 12 more years. He's not going to get worse. I mean, he'll put his time in. I know him. I know what they'll do. And, I'm excited for him, for him to continue to be successful.
Well, he went to he checked out the UFC fight over the weekend. And of course, one tweet goes, I want to fight at UFC. And do you think too much is going to be blown up about him and wanting to fight in the UFC?
Yeah, I haven't really followed it, to be very honest with you. So I don't know his long-term passions. So I really can't comment on that.
All right. Well, let's go back to long-term passions. One of yours has been the Olympic Games and wrestling and training and coaching athletes. We'll go back to 96, and you and Bruce both on the team and both up at Edinburgh. What was that dynamic like back then? I mean, we're talking 20 years ago. This was the first Olympics I got to watch on television. That I really fell in love with the sport right before this, and I remember watching it intently. And then, you go back and look. You got Baumgartner and Lou Rosselli both at this tiny little school in northwestern Pennsylvania. I mean, what was that era like for Edinburgh wrestling and for you and Bruce?
Well, I think that there was a little more to it than that. I mean, if you look real close at it, you'd see that Kurt Angle and Rob Eider were training at Clarion at the same time. So, we had 4 of the 10 people in this little pocket there, in western Pennsylvania.
PSAC schools represent.
Yes. Yeah. So So it was neat. It was good. I got to work out with Rob a lot, and Bruce and Kurt Angle worked out a ton. So I just think we had a good environment. We had some things that were, really good. Bruce Burnett was the coach, and he was teaching the skill sets, and you could come back to your small little area and keep working on them. But the dynamic was good. I mean, Bruce, obviously we trained more alongside each other than we did with each other. But all 4 of us together, we can come in and work out and have a good training situation, not just with college guys that actually know freestyle.
So in 96, both you guys, training and coaching up there, what's that like trying to go through an Olympic cycle and be an actively competitive, senior level Olympian? Well,
the times are a little bit different than a lot of times. Now these RTCs, you have some structure and somebody training you and telling you this is what you're going to have to do. Back then you just trained it really on your own. So it was much easier for me than Bruce. Bruce was the head coach. He was wrestling still. I mean, he had so many other fish to fry than to work out. Just so his days were probably much different than my days. You know, I was probably don't know my official role if I was a club or if I was the assistant, but I can tell you it was much different then, you know, than it is today with the way things were handled, and the prices were a lot different too.
You come away from Ohio State with you've coached a 4-time national champion, you've coached a world and Olympic champion, you've won a team title with Coach Ryan. What are some things you're going to take away from your tenure in Columbus and working with Coach Ryan to build another national powerhouse?
Well, I think, you know, Tom is incredible at development. He's an all-inclusive guy. You know, the olive branch just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, with fans, and he wants more and more people to watch wrestling and to be a part of it. So I think that's one of the biggest things is, you know, he's incredible at you know, building this nice fan base for people that want to be a part of it, and alumni and people that, you know, get involved in the sport. And, you know, that helps in many ways, from raising money to more fans to, you know, getting the things that you need. So, and I think wrestling needs more fans, you know, so I think that part of it for me is good. I'll, you know, be more all-inclusive than, you know, having just, who wants to wrestle in front of 800 people? You know, we want to wrestle in front of, you know, 5,000 people or more. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, you know, that he's all-inclusive.
Yeah, and getting people at I want to see sellouts at Bedlam again on the Oklahoma side. You know, actually Oklahoma State, you guys need to step up too, because that's a big arena and it's not exactly always full. So that's my challenge to Coach Rosselli and Coach Smith is let's sell Bedlam out moving forward. But moving forward on this program, I have a segment, 10 questions in 90 seconds. It is called Short Time. Lou Rosselli, I want the first thing that comes to your mind. I don't want you to overthink it. Just go. Are you ready for the challenge?
Sure.
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right. Question 1. What is the best match you've ever watched?
Best match I ever watched. Oh, I don't know. Next.
All right. You win the Olympic gold medal. What are you having for dinner?
Steak.
Best wrestler people don't talk about.
Bieber.
All-time favorite flavor of Gatorade.
Grape.
What's the best wrestling movie of all time?
Not sure there is one.
All right, who is your favorite international wrestler of all time, excluding yourself?
My favorite of all time. Okay, Burroughs.
You win the Powerball. What's the first college wrestling program you're going to start?
Something in Florida or Texas.
Who's the best JV guy on your high school wrestling team?
Can't remember anybody from that era.
What's your favorite restaurant on the planet?
Don't really have one.
And if you had to be stuck in a foxhole with anybody, would it be Royce Alger or Randy Lewis?
Royce Alger.
All right, that was one I just thought up because we had to throw Royce or Randy in here just for giggles. But Lou, appreciate the time and best luck to you in Norman, and congratulations on coaching Mr. Snyder to a world championship and an Olympic championship. And I'll tell you this about Lou Rosselli, folks, and I alluded to this in the interview, which, again, I recorded prior to the Kyle Snyder blow-up that went all over Bleacher Report and MMA fighting, and Damon Martin broke that story that, you know, he wants to compete in the UFC. So that tweet was the point of the question to Lou, but I didn't get a chance to, when this was recorded was not after basically the MMA media got a hold of it. So, and of course, as we released this on September 19th, the official announcement came out today that Keith Gavin and Michael Leitner were on staff or added to the staff at Oklahoma. A couple things I want to get to here on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast is it is episode 281, September 30th. Is International Podcast Day. I mentioned this on the last episode. What I'd like you to do, and I'm actually kind of changing my tune here. This time, last time I said I want you to leave a review for Short Time. Well, I've gone and registered all the Matt Talk online shows through mypodcastreviews.com. So I would like you to leave a rating or review for any of your favorite Matt Talk Podcast Network shows. and show, and in that review, explain how much you're appreciative of the program or what it's done for you. And especially if you're overseas, if you're one of our nation's enlisted men or women and you're listening and keeping up with wrestling overseas, I'd like you to tell us where you're listening from and things of that nature. If you're an international wrestling fan who likes American college wrestling, or you've liked the international coverage that I've provided on Short Time and the World Wrestling Resource, any program that's on the Mat Talk Podcast Network, by all means, leave your rating and review, and do that for the Gratitude Award from International Podcast Day. It's a podcast nerd thing that I'm kind of involved in the space with. I actually was on a show today talking about podcast nerdery and nerd things. A couple other news options I want to talk about briefly. Hey, this has been a topic on social media. One, Richard Immel's going to come on the program soon to talk about his jaunts to Rio, to I don't know, wherever the heck, France, and then to Tbilisi, Georgia. He has hit status on United, I believe, in like 3 weeks. But Immel's going to come up on the show soon. Erica Weeb from Canada going to join us on the next edition of the program, either that edition, the next edition, or the next one. One of the next two episodes, Erica Weeb, the Olympic champion at 75 kilos in women's freestyle, she'll be joining us on the program, as well as Richard Immel in the next two episodes. But the cadet freestyle world team, and we didn't have a cadet world championships from 2000 till 2009. There was a 10-year gap there. Since it's come back, we've had some good teams. This was a really good team that took second. The cadet freestyle team, Yanni Diakomihalis wins a world title. Gable Dan Stevenson. For those of you who don't know this, Gable Stevenson's middle name is Dan. I first met this kid, Craig Sesker and I, when I was working at USA Wrestling, were working the Folk Style Nationals in Cedar Falls. There was the last chance. It was the last chance Olympic qualifier. And little do I know, but Robert Stevenson comes up to us, and they were living in Indiana at the time, and tells Craig and I about his two boys that are wrestling. And then Gable had won his 5th straight Folk Style National Championship. Well, come to find out, yes, Gable Dan Stevenson. Wrestling thing, and I met Gable when he was 11, and that was just the strangest thing. I actually went back and read Craig's story today. I actually searched it to see if it was around, and not a whole lot of people have been talking about his middle name being Dan, so pretty cool. And then some of the headlines back then were, Minnesota kid has Iowa name, which is pretty interesting. But both world titleists there. Just looking impressive as all get out. Great performance by our young American cadets. And remember, the cadet age internationally is different than what we do here in the States. So we get them typically as a first-year junior. USA age is a last-year cadet in United World Wrestling age. But hey, okay, so I've mentioned the Gratitude Award, and I've mentioned those cadet freestyles. What about this other news coming from the Cadet World Championships, where the Russian coach just goes out on the mat and gives the whole, talk to the hand flip thing, then comes back and just shoves, I don't know if you could call it a slap, a half-hearted choke slam attempt. I mean, it was just a jab at the face of the official. And you know what? That's freaking uncalled for, man. I mean, it goes without saying, I'm not going to try to pile on and take, give some opinion that's going to change the world of wrestling, but let's just be freaking honest here for a minute. And this has been the best point. This is not an original thought by any means, but it's a thought I can get behind. And a lot of you on social media have been echoing this thought, and I applaud you for it. And this is not American bravado talking through here. Whether or not the official was American or not is irrelevant to me. So I sat and watched about 50 feet away from the Mongolian protest in the Rio Olympics. Now, those two senior level coaches got the entire country banned from international competition. They haven't even announced when Mongolian athletes are going to be eligible to compete. Guess what? Because of those two senior level athletes, the Mongolian cadets and juniors were not able to compete at the Junior and Cadet World Championships. That is a bit rich for my blood if you're thinking the punishment not fitting the crime there, okay? Yeah, it was kind of disrespectful in a lot of ways, but as you've probably heard from various outlets that, when the Mongolian culture, when they take their shirt off, that basically it's like, that's them basically saying, you've taken everything from me, here, take my clothes. Again, I'm not repeating something you might not have already heard, but if you haven't heard that before, that's kind of where that comes from. So that gets the entire country of Russia banned by United World Wrestling. Now we have a cadet coach at a world championship shoving an official, physically assaulting an official. And there's pictures floating around on the internet that the same coach was on the podium accepting the championship trophy. Okay, so I don't speak for United World Wrestling. I have worked in a couple different aspects as a freelancer for United World Wrestling. So these are not United World Wrestling thoughts. These are simply the thought. I think these are the thoughts of the general collective wrestling community here. Something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. But what's going to be done? Okay, we've got the Federation president allegedly, with witnesses, assaulting one of the wrestlers. Okay, any other sport that would not fly. Then we've got another coach. You got a coach assaulting an official. Yet two men who had a absolute reason to be irate about what happened at the Olympics has caused numerous junior and cadet level athletes to lose their opportunity to wrestle for medals. What is going to be done here? I think this is where United World Wrestling is really actually going to have to be. They're going to have to man up here. You can't sweep this under the rug. There's video of this. This has happened. It's not, it's not like a Russian, something that happens in Russia. Okay, it's a tournament. It happens. Okay, something's got to be done about this. It absolutely has to be done. So United World Wrestling is back under the microscope after, penalizing an entire country for two guys taking off most of their clothes. Thankfully, the portly one kept his pants on. I mean, I know because I'm about that size. Nobody wants to see me do that. But it's got to be done, man. Something's got to be done. And it's going to have to be serious. It's going to be serious. Somebody's got to, shit rolls downhill, right? So somebody's got to do something about this. And whether it's the executive board of United World Wrestling, if it's the president of United World Wrestling, if it's other vice presidents within United World Wrestling, this cannot continue unchecked. So that's all I can really harp on about that because, I'd be beating a dead horse if I say anything like, anything else. It's already been said. You've said it on the internet. You've read it on the internet. You don't need me to continually repeat it on the internet. But just to say that I stand in the camp that something's got to be done. United World Wrestling, this is on you. Again, I know I've worked with you. I plan on continuing a good, healthy working relationship. But this one, as putting my journalist hat on, this one you can't overlook. You got to do something about it. You got to do, and it's got to be drastic. You can't slap the 800-pound gorilla on the wrist. It's just going to look at you. Anyway, moving on. Let's see what to move on to. We've got schedules being loaded into MadTalkOnline.com. We have various projects that I'm working on, including a digital version of the Almanac. And when I say Almanac, I mean there's a site floating around. I'm going to be releasing this to our team members. So team members will soon have complete access to an online library of major statistics and results. Not necessarily results yet, but major statistics and lists that I've been developing for the past couple years. And this is kind of the offshoot of the Fargo Almanac, the PDF publication, the digital publication that I put out, and the NCAA Championship Preview Guide. So there's a little bit of that into it. But when I'm completing this, our team members here on those who contribute via Patreon at MattTalkOnline.com/join the team, that'll be an added membership benefit. And I'm trying to use this platform here in the month of September and into the month of October to build the membership base. And it's a minor fundraising effort because, again, this is now a fan-supported show financially. So, you're looking at a guy that doesn't have $1 million of venture capital coming in or ad buys in the tens of thousands of dollars. No, I'm just been doing this for 20 years, and I think I do a pretty good job at it for you because, I come up with things. I want to see things as a fan would see them, so I give them to you as such. So if you are a fan of this program or any of the other programs on the Matt Talk Podcast Network, go to MattTalkOnline.com/join the team and help contribute to this network and keep it going. We're starting a third season. Virginia Tech has just renewed for a third year. The Guillotine has just renewed for a second year. We're moving into year 2 of the BVU Wrestling Beavercast. They have renewed. So, we're having a pretty good clip. The numbers are good. The feedback is good. And this is a medium that's not going anywhere for a while. There's a big thing that came out this week about Learfield Sports, which why would you have heard the name Learfield Sports? Well, chances are if you listen to college football on the radio at any point in your car, I'd say it's a pretty good chance that game is being carried on Learfield Sports. It's usually the TV and the radio station, specifically the flagship station of Virginia Tech football here on Learfield Sports, or like you hear NFL, Westwood One, that type of stuff. Learfield is getting into the podcasting game. So if they're getting into it, I've been into this thing for, since 2008. Trust me, folks, this is not going anywhere, but it needs support to keep going. So with that, I do got to thank one of our gear sponsors, Compound. Go to MadTalkOnline.com/teamwear, and that'll take you to Compound Wrestling's teamwear sale that's going on right now. All sorts of team gear and teamwear that Cliff Fretwell and his crew down in Georgia, they do some sick designs and kind of change the way you think about what a wrestling singlet should look like. So give Cliff and his crew a call down there. You can go to the Matt Talk link at MadTalkOnline.com/teamwear, or just go to CMPteamwear.com. That's all I got for this episode. Again, I'd like to thank you for listening. Leave your rating and review for any of the Matt Talk Podcast Network shows as we roll towards International Podcast Day, September 30th. Those ratings and reviews due by September 27th, and I will draw 2 people from the crew that leave these reviews across all the shows, and you will win a Matt Talk Online prize pack, which involves a shirt, the digital almanacs, draft glass, some stickers. We got some cool stuff coming down the pipe. So that's all I got for today's episode. And I beat Willie Saylor in fantasy football this week. That's all I got time for today, but I thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always get time for short time. Beat you, Smalls!
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.